Welcome back to the daily Kitzur Shulchan Aruch Living Jewish class. We are in section 65 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, addressing many everyday issues that we should all be aware of as far as the laws of interest. We'll start with a brief recap of what we've been learning over the last few days. Okay, we spoke about the severity of it, of how it needs to be refunded. If you did charge somebody interest, then you'll need to pay them back whatever interest that you charged them. And then we got into more details. We spoke about extensions and that could be a problem. If somebody's taken a loan and they've asked for an extension and you say that you'll have to charge them for that extension, that's obviously clear interest. Gifts are also a problem, not just money, whether they're given in advance or they give it after the loan. Even a loan in return can be problematic if it's a larger loan. If it's the same amount, it shouldn't be a problem unless you make it conditional, that I'm giving you a loan on condition you give me a loan, then it's questionable. We said that the lender shouldn't have any benefit from the borrower that he wouldn't have had he not lent him the money, because that would be a form of interest. In fact, even if it's just a matter of verbal benefit where the lender asks the borrower to share some information with him and he's only asking it because he lent him the money, that would also be a problem. Lastly, we spoke yesterday about this concept called Sa'ar B'Sa'ar, lending produce. And we discussed that if I borrow a bottle of, I said black label, but maybe we should talk about blue label or gold label. If I borrow a bottle of blue label from my friend and I give it back to him a month later, so then we have an issue of possible interest if the price changed. However, if the difference of price is negligible, where people wouldn't care, wouldn't make much of a difference, then that's fine. So as long as the price difference is very negligible, it's fine. But if the nature of what you've borrowed is something where the price wouldn't be negligible, then you would have to instead determine its current value, and you would have to set up the if I'm borrowing something, borrowing whatever it is of significant value, then I would need to determine the value now and then give back that value rather than the item. Otherwise, there may be interest if the price has gone up since, it means I'm giving back more than I received. But again, if the difference in price is inconsequential, then that wouldn't be a problem. So as far as just borrowing maybe a bottle of black label where the price will vary slightly, then there wouldn't be an issue of giving a bottle back in return, to the best of my knowledge. And then we come now to, finally, we discussed the lender's benefit from a collateral must be deducted. So if somebody lent me money to buy a house and he wants to stay in my house, then I need to charge him to stay in the house. I need to charge him rent, because if I don't, then he's getting interest. As a result of giving me the money, he's getting the benefit of staying in the home. And now we're going to talk about payment, delayed payment, selling debts, advanced payments. Wow, this gets really confusing. I try to keep my head on straight, but many of you are more experienced in the financial world than I am, so maybe you can help me as we go along. Let's take a look at Halacha Yud Gimel, number 13. An object that has a set price may not be sold at a higher price because the seller is willing to wait for payment. Okay, so if I am selling a pair of shoes, and rather than the buyer paying me now, I tell the buyer he can pay me later, but he'll need to pay me more. That would not be allowed. It's a form of interest, because I'm letting him hold on to money that I deserve to receive now. I'm giving him the shoes now. So really, he should be giving me the money now, but it's like I'm giving it back to him. So let's say the shoes cost 500 Rand. So it's as if he gave it to me and then I gave it back to him and I said, you could hold on to it, but then give me 600 Rand, which obviously is interest, because as a result of me letting him hold on to the money and not pay me just yet, I'm charging him more money. So it means that he's paying to hold on to the funds. But an object that has no set price, even though were he to give him the money now, he would give it to him for less, and in return for waiting for the money, he charges him more, that's allowed. So if my pair of shoes has been advertised for 500 Rand, pay me 500 Rand and get your high quality shoes, then if I now say that if you want to pay me later, you'll have to pay me 600, that is forbidden. But if there is no set value, and every person that comes negotiates his own price, then I could sell them for 400, for 500, for 600. So if there's no set price, I haven't advertised a set price, and it's a matter of just how good a deal you'll get, then I certainly can charge more if the payment money is coming later, because then you can't say that I'm charging him to hold on to the money. Rather, it's just we're setting up our own price. There is no set price. And in light of when you will be paying me, this is the price that I will be setting, provided it's not too much. So if the range of shoes is between 450 and 550, and I'm charging the guy 700 Rand to pay me in 6 months' time, then obviously at this point I'm charging him interest, and that wouldn't be allowed. Because then it's obvious to everybody that this is for the advanced or the delayed payment. So that's delayed payments. Even if he only charges slightly more, but he says that if you pay me immediately, then you can have it for 10. But if you give it to me on credit, if you want it on credit, you'll pay me 11. It's not allowed. So even if the shoes don't have a set price, but I tell him either that I'll give it to you for 500 Rand now or 600 Rand if you pay me in a month's time, that wouldn't be allowed. Even if it's 500 Rand or 520 Rand, as long as it's clear that as a result of a delayed payment, he's going to need to pay more, then that is a problem. Similarly, if the buyer buys the goods at a higher price in return for the seller waiting for payment in order to sell it immediately at a loss and to have ready cash available for a certain period of time, this too is prohibited. Sorry, I missed that. Let's try this again. So I've got the shoes and the buyer says he's going to pay me not 500 Rand, but 600 Rand, but he's not going to pay me just yet. In order to sell it, so he's going to buy the shoes from me now, and instead of paying me 500, he's going to pay me 600 because he can't pay me just yet. Then he's immediately going to sell the shoes at a loss. So he's going to pay me 600, but he's going to sell them for 500. So although he's incurring a loss, it's a problem because still, as far between me and him, I'm charging him more for the delayed payment. Okay. So selling debts. This is a loophole. This is a way that you could get money and pay interest for it, but without actually paying interest. This is a way that you could take money and have to give back more money without any interest involved. So here we go. Hold your heads. He gives an introduction. It's a common business practice to sell promissory notes at a discount of their face value. For example, a lender who is holding $100 note due in 6 months. The lender has a note that entitles him to $100 in 6 months. And he needs the money now. He can't wait for another 6 months to get his $100 back. So he finds a buyer willing to buy the notes or the right to collect the money in 6 months for $90. So I don't want to wait till January to get my $100 back. I need the money now. So what I do is I sell the promissory note to a third party, and he'll only pay me $90, but that way I'll have the cash now. I'd rather have $90 now than $100 in January. Although what has in fact happened is that the buyer advanced the lender $90 in return for collecting $100 in the future. No ribis is incurred. Okay, so let's just discuss this. Okay, so I lent money to John. I lent $100 to John, and I told him he needs to pay me back in January. Then I needed the cash right away. And I said to Lance, you know what, Lance, if you give me $90 now, then I'll let you collect the $100 from John. So you might argue that Lance is getting a loan at interest because he's giving $90 now to me, and he's going to get back $100 in a month's time. So in return for giving me $90 when I need cash in advance, he's getting $100 back. So I'm paying Lance $10 interest in order to borrow money from him for this next month, because Lance right now is giving me 90, and in a month's time, he'll be getting back 100, which originally came from me. But that's not a problem. Why is it not a problem? It's not considered a loan. It's called a bona fide, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, sale where the buyer has bought the rights to become the lender, meaning it's two independent transactions. Okay, so even though Lance is now giving 90 and in a month's time he'll be getting back 100, and I'm right now receiving 90 when I really gave 100 at the start, they're independent sales, independent transactions. I lent John 100, and that was that. And then I sold my loan to Lance for $90. That said, if it is stipulated that the seller retains all responsibility for collecting the loan, and if for any reason the borrower does not pay, the seller will be obligated to pay the buyer the $100. In that case, the $90 paid is nothing but a loan with the promise of $100 will be repaid, which of course is interest. So let me spell that out. Okay. If I came to Lance and I said to Lance, Lance, will you buy this $100 note of me for $90? And Lance says, no problem, but you need to guarantee me that if for whatever reason John doesn't give me the $100, then you will cover it. So then that's not a proper sale. As long as I'm still a guarantor on the 100, it means it's still, that means that it hasn't been a complete transaction. Then it means that all that's happened is that Lance is lending me 90 to get back 100. As long as I need a guarantee that he gets his 100, then it means that it's nothing but a loan with interest. So it would depend. Generally, when banks do sell debts, the whole idea is that when let's say professionals sell owed monies, the idea is that once it's sold, it's done with. It's not their problem anymore. Then there wouldn't be any problem. But as long as the debt collector would leave the responsibility of the collection, which I guess doesn't happen, on the seller of the debts, on the professional, then that would be interest. So that was an introduction to this next halacha. Halacha number 18. So where are we up to? 14, sorry. So one who has a promissory note against his friend may sell it to another for less, even before it is due. The seller must write to the buyer, I hereby sell you this note, and you hereby obtain it and any mortgage attached to it. All responsibility for collecting the monies must rest with the buyer. Only responsibility that emanates from the seller, for example, selling a note that has been paid, or any similar situation, may rest with the seller. Obviously, if I sold Lance $100 note that I had already collected, then that would just be, I would obviously be responsible because I sold him something that didn't exist. But otherwise, just as the note may be sold to a third party at a discount, so too it may be sold also to the borrower himself. So this is where it gets more confusing. Hold on. Okay. So this is allowed. So Ruvain, I'm going to rather use us as examples so we can keep track more easily. So Ruvain, we'll call Ruvain is me. I need money now in the second month of November. Okay. So I need money now, and I'm willing to pay interest, but I'm not actually willing to pay interest because I don't want to break what the Torah says. So I set up an alternative to interest, which is allowed, but it's not interest. But it's like interest, but it's not. So here we go. So I need $100, let's say now in November. I need at the end of October. I go to Shimon, and I say to Shimon, I never lent anybody to Shimon, but I say to Shimon, we're such good friends. Shimon, can we write out a note that you owe me $100? Okay, so now let's call Shimon Tzachi. I need right now money in the end of October. And I go to Tzachi and I say to Tzachi, Tzachi, I don't want money from you, but I want a note that says that you owe me money, even though you don't. Okay. Give me a note that you owe me money and I need to pay you back. Sorry, you owe me money and you need to pay me back by January. Okay. Now, Tzachi doesn't want to just lose his $100 because I'm asking him to write a bill that he owes me money when he doesn't. So what we do is he puts in the brackets, then we make a second bill that I owe Tzachi money. Okay, that also needs to be paid back. That way, the balance is back to zero. But we're leaving the second note aside. So there's a bill that Tzachi owes me 100, and there's a bill that I owe Tzachi 100. I put the bill that I owe Tzachi, I give that to Tzachi in case we ever have issues. But now I go with the bill that Tzachi gave me that he owes me $100. Okay. I now go and I sell the note to Gerald. Okay. So I know it's getting complicated. I didn't borrow money from Tzachi and I didn't lend money to Tzachi, but Tzachi wrote out a legal document that he has to pay me $100 in January. I now go and I sell that note to Gerald. I say that Gerald, instead of me getting the $100 in January, I need cash now. Pay me $100, pay me $90 now, and then you could collect the money from Tzachi in January. So that's allowed. Even though if you think about it, what just happened? In essence, it's pretty much like I asked Tzachi to give me $90 now and I'll give him back $100 in January, which would be clear interest. But the way I set it up was I just took a promissory note that he owes me money, to which there was another note that corresponds, and I sold that for less than its value. And now Gerald will be able to get the 100 back from him, which he'll then come and collect from me and give me 90. I know it's quite complicated, but it's a system where you'd be able to get cash now and pay back more later without any interest involved. Certainly, this holds true in a situation where Shimon has a promissory note against Yehuda, whose date is sometime in the future. So until now, I was talking about where Tzachi would give me a note that he owes me money, but it would be even better if somebody else owed me money and I sold that promissory note, because then it's clearly separate transactions. Wow, I see it's already approaching 5:20 and we've barely scratched the surface. Let's try to conclude this particular discussion. Okay. However, if Reuven were to write a promissory note against himself to Shimon at a discount, even if the money is delivered through an intermediary, it is prohibited. So they need to be independent transactions and then it works. But the moment you just become like a messenger, a middleman, then obviously that's pure interest. You've got to break it up into independent financial transactions, and then that's how it could work. But as long as you're an agent, it doesn't work. And I see it's hit 5:20, but I guess this takes us on to the next discussion, which is advance payment. Thanks for joining. Please God to be continued next week. If you lost me today, I'll try to regain clarity at the beginning of next week. Wishing you